In this video, I'm going to discuss creating mood and atmosphere in landscape photography. I'm just back from a family holiday, and since it was a holiday, I didn't want to dedicate too much time to my photography. Initially, I allocated part of one day to head out and explore with the hope of capturing one image, and that turned out to be a success. And I'll show you that image shortly and discuss what I was trying to achieve and how I did it. Then, a few days later, I unexpectedly was able to head out once more, but this time with a friend, as you'll see later, to see if I could find another image that appealed to me, and I recorded some on-location video for that one, so I'll cut to that later. On both days that I was able to head out, the weather was overcast, quite dull, but rather than see this as a bad thing, I often see it as a great opportunity to capture moody and atmospheric images. It can also work well to create an ethereal look, which is something that I really like. So let's start by taking a look at the first image I captured. So this is the first image that I captured while on holiday, and I'm really pleased with it for two reasons. One is that simply the image appeals to me. I really like it. I think everything fits together nicely in this image. But the second reason is that I headed out in overcast conditions only with hope of finding a location that would let me convey mood and atmosphere. So I feel quite lucky that I found this scene. Now obviously I had to put in a lot of work and effort and technical stuff to achieve this image, but finding the correct location helped me do that. So I feel quite fortunate I stumbled across it. So if this image was a colour image, it simply wouldn't work. There was a lot of grey. We've got grey in the stones, grey in the sky. There was very little colour in the sky. And the overcast grey in the sky is being reflected in the water. Now there was a little bit of colour. We had some grass here, some growth on the tree, and a little bit of colour, but not too much in the hills in the distance. But all those colours were very dull. They were very muted due to the overcast conditions. They lacked vibrancy. So it would never work as a colour image, but me looking for mood and atmosphere and putting this in black and white, it all fits together nicely. And instantly when I saw this scene, I was thinking black and white, mood and atmosphere. It ticked all my boxes, and I was delighted to put down my camera bag and start setting things up. So what attracted me to this scene? Well, I quite like doing woodland photography. You'll have seen that if you've watched any of my previous videos. But obviously this is not a woodland, but it's got a tree in it. Now I like photographing trees, and this one certainly appealed to my eye, but not because it's a pretty tree, not by any stretch of the imagination, but more due to its character. It tells a story. We've got this very unusual shape, we've got growth on it. It hints at its age. It shows so much character and age, and you almost wonder what is it seen in its lifetime as it's looked out across this stretch of water. Also, its positioning right on the edge of the waterline is very interesting, and it's complemented by these hills off to the left. Now this image is obviously in black and white, but these hills are very much the way I saw them as I captured the image. That's how I like to do things. There was some light on the furthest away hills, and you could see a bit more detail in the nearest ones, but they very much looked like a silhouette. There was a lot of tone in them, and I think that tone has worked very nicely in the black and white image and gave this almost silhouette type appearance to them. So I really like that. Small twig, it's a small feature. I'd never remove that. I think it adds a little something as it protrudes from the water. And I was really attracted to the curve of the shoreline. Now I had to work at my composition, choose the correct positioning, correct focal length, but I really liked how there's this almost S shape along the shoreline here, and starting from the bottom left, it leads your eye up to this tree. And then the tree, as I said earlier, obviously is complemented by the mountains. And what I like about the or hills over to the left there, and what I like about the shoreline is all these rocks and small stretches, the lines here that move your eye across to the left over to those hills. So in terms of a composition, I think everything fits quite nicely. Key was using the correct focal length. It was 80mm in this case, to get the tree and the hills the correct size in my frame. I didn't want the hills to appear too small and the tree to be too dominant. It was all about getting the balance right. I also really like these partially submerged stones, and the blades of grass that come out of the water. I really like that, and the long exposures give a very nice look to the sky and the water as well. It's given it this ethereal look, which I'm a big fan of. So in terms of technical details, it was a 1 minute 5 second exposure. The clouds weren't moving very quick at all. I think they were moving from right to left, if memory serves me correctly. So that's the sort of length of exposure I felt was working quite nicely, and it's worked nicely in the water as well. Now, as I say, I was at 80 millimeters, and it took a lot of work on composition in terms of my positioning, how close and far away from the tree I moved, and how high or low I put my camera. But this is how the composition looked at its best to me. And to get everything sharp, I really wanted all the detail to be sharp. There's so much detail, the rocks, the grass, etc. I had to take 2 exposures and focus stack. And if we have a look here, I was at f16. That just let me achieve the shot in 2 exposures rather than going to 3 exposures. You'll see everything there is nice and sharp, and all the way off into the hills in the distance. Now there's a lot of detail on this tree, and this area of the tree was extremely dark. Now I still have a lot of leeway left. I could have raised the shadows even more, worked on the blacks, etc., but I didn't want to do that because this accurately reflects how I saw the tree while I was there. I don't like raising the shadows too much and revealing too much detail because it's not what I saw, and then it starts to give it this HDR type appearance, which I'm not a fan of. But that's pretty much the image. I think there's a lot of mood and atmosphere in it due to the way I've captured it, my composition, long exposure, etc., focal length, but also the characters in the scene, the hills and the age that this tree shows here, its unique appearance and positioning. So I'm a big fan of it. I hope you like the image too. Now I'll cut to the second image I managed to get while I was on holiday. I spent a little bit of time with a friend, managed to get a fairly nice image at the same time and do a little bit of video on location, so we'll cut to that now. So it's been a couple of days since the previous section in this vlog, and unexpectedly I managed to get a bit more time to do some photography, combined with a nice walk for my dog here, which is the priority for today. But off in the distance behind me here is a very small island, and that is the Ailsa Craig in Scotland. And again, it's overcast conditions, so I'm going for another moody shot, another long exposure. The conditions today are just absolutely perfect for this image. I couldn't have asked for any better. For this particular image, I liked the way the light was reflecting off the water, and I didn't want to eliminate that, so no use of a polarizer for this particular image. But I really like this one. I love moody coastal images in overcast conditions, so I think this one is going to look really nice once I get it edited. But I've managed to get a little bit of photography done, walked the dogs. It's time to head off now. But I hope you've really enjoyed watching this vlog, taken over a few days when I've just had a little bit of time to do some photography, and I've hopefully captured a couple of nice images. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next vlog.